Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, we are in the middle of a series called The View from the Boxes, where we take a look at how a Zettelkasten operates from the point of view of the physical objects that comprise the Zettelkasten. Well, we're on the main box is our main topic for right now, but this is a bit of a rabbit hole, so maybe this will be the right episode for you and maybe it won't. There's a criterion that will let you know whether you might want to watch this episode. Have you read Scott Scheper's book, The Anti-Net Zettelkasten, or have you watched a number of his videos? If you have, and you've also watched a number of my videos, you've probably noticed that our numbering systems are quite different. And this video is about why the two numbering systems are so different, what can be done to bring them closer together if that's something that's important to you, and what's really more important is that there's a philosophical difference that underlies the differences in our numbering system. So if you've ever been intrigued by Scott's numbering system, wondered how it worked, maybe you tried to decipher it and couldn't, but you really are interested in it, then stick around because I think I will be able to make Scott Scheper's numbering system make sense for you if that's what you want to use. And I will also, with those two philosophical differences, you'll be able to decide, well, which use of your Zettelkasten is more aligned with your purpose, which might help you decide which numbering system is the better to use. And then I'll cap the whole thing off by saying that even if your purpose is aligned with Scott's and you basically want to follow his numbering system, the fact of the matter is you can use mine after the category and it's mathematically equivalent. So stick around for the very end if that interests you. So without further ado, let's dive in. We'll be showing some cards in a little bit, but what we're going to start with is the philosophy that underlies Scott's system versus my system, because it has an awful lot to do with for what reason we're keeping a Zettelkasten. Scott has often said that before you start your Zettelkasten, you should have a project in mind that you are wanting to use your Zettelkasten for. He emphasizes that a Zettelkasten is a tool to help you write. So before you even begin to organize your Zettelkasten, have in mind the project that you want to write. That is a very clear statement of function. If that is you, then listen up on the Scott Scheper approach, because that is going to be more aligned in general with where you're headed. In my world, I've always challenged that. I've believed that a Zettelkasten is there for a way to confront ideas in a manner that interesting, contrasting ideas can intermingle, bounce off one another, create new ideas. That a Zettelkasten is for the exploration of knowledge for its own sake, and you don't have to have the faintest notion what you're going to ever do with it when you start your Zettelkasten. Just enjoy your Zettelkasten. See the clear difference? Where are you? Are you more the, I've got a project, I got work to do, I want to get my work done? Or are you, I love to learn, knowledge is just great fun, I read tons of books in all different areas, maybe I'll write something someday, maybe I've even got something in mind that I am writing, but it's a part of a much broader life love of knowledge that I want to capture into my Zettelkasten. Valid, valid. There's nothing invalid about either, but it's going to drive a lot of decisions about how you're going to organize your Zettelkasten. So you've heard me talk a lot if you followed me for very long, so I'm not going to emphasize so much my approach. If you watch the Minimalist series, you'll see that. If you watch the Pre-Zettelkasten series, you'll see that. If you follow me going forward, you'll see that, because I don't have any problem, of course, with advertising the methods that I use. But let me go into a little bit about Scott Scheper's approach. When the Zettelkasten is a tool, an adjunct tool for the creation of a written project, it's a very different mindset. And what you need to do in that case is all of the work that you do needs to drive towards that project. That means it's going to be the selection of the sources that you use, how you organize the cards that you create from those sources, how you determine what other sources you need, and very much so, how do you want to number your cards. So let's go ahead now and dive in to the down-facing camera, and we'll take a look at how this difference shows up in the Zettelkasten in the choice of organization using categories, and then where the numbers come from after you've established the category. So come on over to the down-facing camera with me, and we'll explore it a little further. See you over there. Okay, we're ready to get down to work here. Now, I should point out that if you do not yet have Scott Scheper's book, The Internet Zettelkasten, you can get it at scottscheper.com. There's no P in it. It's just scottscheper.com. He only sells it on his website. I think you might be able to get used copies on Amazon. I'm not sure about that. And even though I number my cards vastly different than the way Scott does, as you might be able to guess, Scott Scheper and I are in pretty good agreement, and so much so that he chose my testimonial of his book for the front cover. So that'll tell you a little bit about how much in agreement we are. I belong to his Right to Freedom program, and I will tell you that's a really, really excellent way to go if you have an aspiration to write a book, if you'd like to draw a community around yourself and be passionate about the thing that most interests you, you can hardly do better than join Scott's Right to Freedom program. That said, let's dive in now to Scott's approach to numbering. For this illustration, I'm drawing some diagrams from an earlier book that Scott produced some time ago. I'm not sure if this one is even available anymore. I think this is pretty much the information that you can now get in his Antinet course that you can also get at his website. So some of the drawings are easier to see in this book than in the thicker one. To begin with, Scott bases his category numbers, and he always begins every card number with a 4-digit category number, and they are based on the Wikipedia Outline of Academic Disciplines. And here is the link for where to get it. In fact, all you really need to do is Google Wiki Academic. Almost any one of these words with wiki will get you right there. Then this diagram, also from the same book of Scott's, will show you how he extracts the big round numbers for his numbering system. And as you'll notice, these already come with a number of breakdowns, but what's more, if you click on any of these blue words, they're links, and they will take you to bigger breakdowns of each of these. So the way you build out your numbering system is from your starting point. This 3 becomes number 3000, which everything in your 3000 area is going to be on natural sciences. And then you'll find out which area of natural sciences you're interested in. There are more out there. If you don't see your area of interest here, click on natural science and you'll get a bigger list. But let's say you're interested in earth science, 3.3. Well, then you would have 3300 would be your earth sciences category. Then if you click on earth science on the wiki link, it'll break it down further. And maybe you're interested in sustainable water supply, and you're going to give that the number 3320. So you can see how you can break it down. You probably wouldn't go any further than like 3320 until you're ready to name your exact topic. And then within that number, you pick your topic for the project that you want to work on. And so that's where your card numbering gets started for a project. You'll find that every single card in your project will have that same 4-digit number leading it off. That's how you identify it as a project in Scott's system. For example, in this card that I showed you yesterday, Right to Freedom, it was the project header card for all of the cards that that Scott instructs you to make while watching all of the videos in his Right to Freedom program. And so there is an example of a category number that's firmly established. So everything in that project will come under Right to Freedom. Now, I should point out that Scott makes a clear distinction of when you are in development mode versus when you're in contribution mode. So it's not really accurate to say that Scott doesn't use his Zettelkasten for general information. He absolutely does. It's just that his most central purpose for it is the projects that he's working on. And so I want to be clear about that. So once you've got a category established for your project, then all of the cards that you create for your project are going to go into this area. And from this point on, you need to be thinking of your project as being like an outline. You need to be able to arrange your cards out on your desktop in such a way that it almost looks like an outline that you might have done for an essay in high school. And Scott provides an example of that in his book. This is page 479 of the big book, where he shows how he laid out the outline of the book itself onto cards that went into his Zettelkasten. And so you can practically see the outline shaping up in the way the cards are laid out on the desktop. So if you think about it, in a perfect numbering system, this would be your first card. This would be your /1, /2, /3, /4, /5, and so on. And then if you have this card as being your /2, this would be /2, /1, to and every card going deeper would be another ///. For me, it would be category -2 again, 2A, 2A1, 2A1A, -2A1A-1. But they would be equivalent. Now, the challenge with Scott's system comes in when you need to insert a card someplace in this layout after the layout has already been established and the numbers have already been assigned. Then that creates a problem for Scott that he needs to solve using the rules of his numbering system. And that's where you start getting some pretty strange looking numbers. Okay, suppose you've laid out your outline and you've got 3 different main topics that you want to cover under the heading 5167. They would be numbered /1, /2, and /3. Now here you go along and you discover, I have another really, really important topic that I don't have in my system. Where am I going to put it? How am I going to number it? And Scott asks a very important question in his world. He wants to know, what is the order in which you want to present these topics? This ordering is very important in Scott's, I'm going to say, in his mental approach to how he organizes the cards in his system. To him, it's very important that where exactly the new card should fit in. If the new card that's a new main topic really should have been the very first one, then he's going to number it 5167/0 because 0 comes before 1. What is he going to do if it comes between, he would really belong between these two? Then he might, there are no numbers between 2 and 3, so he might go to letters. And now 2A would definitely fall between 2 and 3. Things get really tricky if then you get another one that needs to fall right in here between this card and this card. Now what do? Now you have to start getting really tricky with your numbers, and the numbers get really weird looking. I have a solution to that system, which I call my directory cards. If I have 5167 is the category of my big project, then I'm going to show each of my subdivisions within my big project on a directory card. So I would list on my directory card the tagline from each of these individual cards. Now, if my new card came along and I developed a new point that was very important, it wouldn't matter to me where it goes because everything's on this card. I would add it to my directory card and I would simply give it the next available number. Now I don't have any funny numbering at all. But this is tied to a project. And if it's tied to an output project, where you're in contribution mode and you're creating something in writing, it very, very much matters what order these come in. How can you get away with just adding it at the end? You don't want to put it at the end of your book. You haven't written it yet, and even if you had, word processors can put things in front of other things. How important is it, if they're all listed together on one card, what the order is? What's wrong with just making a note? I could add a simple column over here saying discussion order. I could even call it book discussion order. And I would say, okay, this is the one I want to do first, then this, then this, then this. It's still numbered 5167/4, but when I'm arranging the cards on my desktop when I'm ready to write, I'm going to put those down first, and then put those down and those down and those down. Very simple, and you don't have to have numbers that get difficult and convoluted. Well, now what do you do when it comes along to this other one that belongs between these two? Now what do you do? Now you're in a real mess. No, you're not. You have the next available free number. One more project comes in. Oh, but you want it to come between this one and this one. It needs to be someplace else. With a small investment and some handy whiteout, you can change the order as often as you like. Now, getting back to Scott's way of doing things again, if he's inserted a new card here at 5167/0, what does he do if he needs a card to go in front of this one? Then he simply switches to negative numbers. If he needs another one in front of that, -2, -3, etc. He just goes backwards in his numbering system. And that works. A directory card is easier. But Scott also has basically, he calls them a branch collective, but it's basically the same as my directory cards. And since his branch collectives came first, I should rather say that my directory cards are rather like his branch collectives, except I'm very systematic about when I use mine. Anytime a main card has 2 or more cards that fall under it, I begin to use a branch collective, or in my case, I call it a directory card. Scott has them as well, but he wants them to go as close as possible to 5167 and not allow anything else to come in between them. So he'll use a number like -9999, and that just tells him that nothing's going to squeeze in there. That is going to come right next to it. I accomplish this same thing by switching color of the card. It's my directory card. It's got the exact same number as my card because it's not really a card in my system, even though they get filed in my system right next to each other, just like Scott's directory card would get filed right after the card that it provides the branch collective for. Now, I have an enormous debt of gratitude to Scott. Scott is how I learned the Zettelkasten, where I learned the Zettelkasten. I probably would never have Zeke here, my beloved Zettelkasten, if it were not for Scott. Highly unlikely that I would ever have a handwritten Zettelkasten, which I think for me is of enormous value. So, and I have to also respect what he did. He figured out the numbering system that Nicholas Luhmann used in the creation of his cards, and he brought that numbering system back to us. It's a mechanism by which you can order cards in a tree structure and still be able to insert new cards at any place in the tree. I believe that Nicholas Luhmann found a way of doing that is more complex than it needed to be, but then that's also part of the take on Nicholas Luhmann anyway. He was a very complicated fellow. He had no qualms about dealing with complexity. And again, if Scott had not brought that back to us, to me in particular, I would not have a Zettelkasten. So I'm very, very grateful for him. So I hope now that if you like his style of numbering, go for it. If it isn't still completely clear, ask me in the comments and I'll be glad to add some more. I didn't understand his numbering system until after I had created my own, when I realized, wait a minute, other than notation, these are really basically the same. And then, other than a directory card to set your order, you don't need the crazy numbering system that you get into when you got to squeeze cards in together. So I think that's the one thing that isn't necessary. And whether you use the slashes or the number letter, it really doesn't matter. if you use a directory card, you can have complete control of the order without creating crazy numbers. So I hope you enjoyed this little side topic where we kind of went down a rabbit hole on Scott Scheper's numbering. And please join me again for the next video where we get a little bit more on track and we return to our main box. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.